All right, everyone. Well, welcome. I have some really fun and exciting news today. As you know, our course this quarter is entirely asynchronous, which means that we're all online. There's no live interaction. Of course, you know that we do some video, and I, of course, respond to emails as timely as I possibly can. But one of the things that I like to do, even when I'm in class in person, is to bring in guest speakers to help us kind of highlight and elucidate the material that we're covering for that particular week. Now, what we have today is we have a really good special bonus today because Steve Bram from George Smith Partners, which is now an Access company, has agreed to yet come in once again and talk to us about financing the development deal. Now, Steve has been very gracious. I've been teaching now, I think, Steve, for 14 years. I think in each one of those 14 years, maybe just for a little bit of time, there you've come into a number of my classes to talk about real estate financing, development financing, construction financing. Steve comes to us with a wealth of information. And so let me just give Steve his props and introduce him properly. So Steve Bram is managing director and principal of George Smith Partners. He's had over 35 years worth of experience at George Smith Partners, including all types of financing. That includes construction, bridge, permanent, commercial, and residential properties, along with, I think it's highly complex structured financing, including mezz, preferred equity, and equity placements, which of course is part of the capital stack. Steve is a recognized specialist in the area of hotel financing. He's been involved in over 30 different hotel related transactions totaling over $350 million over the last 10 years. He's also an expert in apartment financing and renovations of older buildings. Steve started his career, and I think he'll probably tell us, just riff, if you will, Steve, in the beginning, your kind of UCLA extension experience. Steve has taken many extension courses over the years, and I think he'll give us a little bit of a story about that. I think Steve also worked for Alan Coton, originally kind of at the beginning of his career. Alan was one of my former professors in the USC MRED program. Alan and I got along quite well. Steve comes to us from the Wharton School of Finance. He earned his MBA from Wharton, that little community college out there in Pennsylvania. He also earned his Bachelor of Science from the #1 hotel program in the country at Cornell, another little community college there in New York. He did graduate #1 in his class. He did some work also here locally at Claremont McKenna. Steve comes to us with a lot of experience. He's been very gracious to talk to my classes over the years, not only mine here at UCLA, but also my classes at USC. And he's also been a guest speaker here at UCLA Extension for a number of years. So Steve, we're very grateful that you can join us to talk to us today about financing the development deal. So take it away.
Hey, hello class. This is a unique experience for me because I love to call on people in the class. So you guys are off the hook today. I'm not going to be call on you. So lucky you. I would typically say, hey, you in the back row, wake up, or get off of your phone and listen to the class. So I'm saying the same thing to you all right now. Pay attention. Anyway, I've known Mark for a long time. It's great to be a guest in the class again. Let me just expand a bit on my background real quick, what we do. And I love to do this because I owe my career to UCLA Extension. After I graduated from hotel school, and then I worked in the hotel business, and I went to business school. I wanted to come back and work in LA, so I came back to LA and I got a job with Alan Coton, who's a professor at both USC and UCLA. He's still around. And I was taking a class in advanced tax planning at UCLA Extension. And a couple of guys in the class caught me during the break and said, hey, Steve, you seem like a smart guy. Would you like to come work for us? And I said, sure. What do you guys do? It says we're mortgage brokers. I said, I've never heard of that. What does that mean? And they explained to me, and I said, I went to business school. They told me all about the work world and the finance world. They never mentioned mortgage brokerage. I did not know what that was. Well, I said, I really like my job with Alan Coton. I don't want to leave. And I said goodbye to them. Well, the next week I had to see them at the break again, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. And as you can guess, they ultimately got me to go for an interview. I ultimately took a job at what was called, even back then, 38 years ago, George Smith Partners, a division of Grubb and Ellis at the time. And what mortgage brokers do is they serve as agents or representatives for owners of property to help them figure out how to finance the properties they've got. The reason we do that is because sponsors, developers know how to develop, know how to build, know how to design, know how to entitle. They usually don't know how to finance, and they don't have the relationship with the financiers to get that done. If I were to say to you, get me a loan from State Farm Insurance, who would you call, right? You probably have no idea. If I said get a loan from B of A, would you go to your branch and ask somebody for a loan? That's not how it's done for a $40 million hotel loan. There are specific people you talk to, and finding them and building a relationship with them is important. When we send deals to people, they know us, and while they might have 25 deals on their desk, they usually look at ours first because they know we've underwritten the deal and we have the client under control. So we can get access to the capital, number one. And number two, sponsors usually don't know what they can get. They know they'd like to build something, but they don't know how much financing they can get, what kind of rates, what kind of structure. They just don't know what to ask when they don't know how to present it, so that the lender can look at it and understand it and know if they're interested in the deal or not. So that's the kind of things that we do. Any questions? Oops, I can't do that. Send it in the text box. The way that we work at the firm is that I've got, our firm has about 40 people in it. My team has 3 people in it. They've worked for me, one for 26 years and one for 18 years. As you can see, I must be doing something wrong because they just won't read. And that team of mine work on deals. We've got about 7 or 8 deals in our team, active deals right now. We're working on some we're going to close in the next week or 2. So we're always looking at deals that we're trying to figure out if we can represent the client, help them get financing. We charge, by the way, a brokerage fee, typically 1%. If the deal is quite large, we'll charge less than that. And that's an extra fee that the client pays us for the services we provide them. They usually feel they're getting their money's worth because we can get the rates reduced and the fees reduced because we bring them 3 or 4 offers and negotiate them down amongst each other to improve the deal. So they hire us on an exclusive basis to find them deals, to find them the loans. Today, I'm going to talk about one specific deal because Mark asked me to do that. And I'm going to talk actually about a deal that's being developed by me. After 38 years at this, I've started to get in the development business myself, and I do that on the side. So I'm going to talk about the deal, and let me open up a pack. See if this works. Can everybody see that?
Everything's working great, Steve.
So this is called Pico Apartments. It's a project that I'm working on, and it's a $22.6 million request for a 62-unit apartment project on Pico. This is some detail on the deal. I'm going to show you more about where it is. So this is a map here. Pico is right here, as you can see. Let me go to one more map here. This map here, Century City is here. Fox Studios is here. The park is right here. And the golf course is here. Pico runs along here. This is Pico Boulevard. And Google, as I'm sure you all know, has leased 100% of the West Side Pavilion and Hudson Pacific. Joint ventured that with Macerich that owned it, and they did like $150 million rehab to make it applicable for Google, and Google is going to start to move in there in early 2023. Our project, as you can see, is about 2 blocks from that office. Google's offices were also about 4 blocks from Fox Studios and about 6 blocks from Century City. You can actually walk from our project easily take a bike or a scooter from our project over to Century Fox Studios, and you can walk to Google from where we are. Uh, let's see, this is what we're going to build. It's a 62 unit apartment house with retail on the ground floor and 2 stories of subterranean garage. It's another picture of the retail here. Let me see if I have a floor plan. I don't think I do. So let me talk about how we got the deal to where it is now. So let me close this, and I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you briefly about. Let's see. I want to undo the screen share for the moment. I'll leave this. I'll leave the screen share up. So my partner and I purchased 2 retail parcels along here. And for those of you who know your way around here, it's across from McDonald's on Pico and 1 door down from F&S Fabrics and Pep Boys on Pico, right there. There was a bead store there and a music store and other things like that. And the brokers came to us. Thank you. The brokers came to us and said, would we like to buy this? And you know, what's the first thing you do when somebody says, would you like to buy a parcel? Well, one thing is you see if the tenants who are in there are going to leave. Are they on a month-to-month lease, or are they on like a 20-year lease and you're never going to be able to get them out? So can you get access to the property? The second thing is you see how it's zoned. Big deal. Is it R2? Is it R3? Is it R4? Those are the kind of things you look at. It ended up that the parcels along this street are R4, which is a good thing. It also ends up that the alley behind our property, we back onto some duplex and triplexes behind us, where all the other blocks along this street, Pico, all the other homes backing on, or the properties backing onto the alley along Pico are single family homes. In this case, we back up to duplexes, triplexes. What does that mean? That means that because we're not backing on to residential, single family residential, we're allowed to build out to the lot line rather than having to sandwich or tier it back. If they were single family residences, then the commercial that we build, the apartments that we build, would have to be tiered like a birthday cake, multiple cake, a wedding cake. It would have to be tiered back, and we'd lose square feet. So the good news is we're R4. The good news is we don't have to tier, and so we got this approved for, and we are now 100% approved, and we've passed our appeal. We got this approved for 62 singles. Now we are in a TOC, transit-oriented community, because we're close enough to the metro rail that's there. So that allows us to increase the density that we've got here. So as you're trying to plan the project here, you've got 2 things that you look at. One is how big can you build your box? How many square feet can you build in there? And like I said, you might have to tier it back. In our case, we didn't. So we calculate how many square feet we can build. The next thing we figure out is how many apartments are we allowed to build. Unit count. And because of the transit-oriented communities, TOC, we were able to build 62 units, which is incredible. The more units you build, the more rent you can get, because smaller units get more rent per square foot, larger units get less rent per square foot. So if you said to me, in this box, would I prefer to build 35 or 40 large 2-bedroom units, or would I prefer to build 62 smaller singles? You calculate the fact that the cost is pretty much the same. You've got more bathrooms and kitchens, but the cost is not huge, the difference. And you're going to get a lot more rent for the singles. But you can't build all these singles in most properties because you're not allowed to build 62 units in a place like this, except for the fact that because of the way it's zoned, we could get that done. So we processed the TOC and we got it approved. We're fully approved now for that. Why are we building 62 singles, you might ask? I'm going to go back and share again. I can do it from here, no problem. Well, one thing we do is we look at the comps. So here are some comps, for example, studio comps. So as you can see, comps under 400 square feet, there are three of them here. They are all 100% leased. Comps over 400 square feet, we found 3 of them for studios. They're also 100% leased. So we look at what kind of rents they get there. The rents that these get, let's just look at the one, our rents, as you can see right here, subject. The subject is going to be 387 square feet average, and we're going to be renting them for $2,900 a foot, we think.
Wow, Steve. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Those are amazing numbers for rents.
So how do we support that? Well, one thing is we look at the comps here. So these 3 comps that are under 400 square feet, there's SW by CLG, there's ampersand Pico, and there's NMS. Those rents are $2,350, $2,811, and $30.95. So the average rent that those guys get is $2,700 a foot. Then we go and we adjust them. Slope is something you use to adjust the rents based on their square feet versus our square feet. We use a ratio of 50%. Amenities, some of these have nicer amenities, some have worse. We're furnished, these 2 aren't furnished, so we adjust the rents by 10%, and we get adjusted rents of $2,900, $2,900, and $3,650 are the adjusted rents we get. These rents are now, our rents are going to be 2 years from now, and these properties are all older, and ours is going to be brand new. Also, these properties are not walking distance to Google, where we're going to go. So we think that our properties got the advantage of being walking distance to Google. Why do we think there's demand for having apartments by Google? Google's going to have 3,000 employees there over the next 2 years. Where are they going to live? Some of those employees are going to be people that don't make a lot, mid-tier or low-tier employees, and they're going to want someplace inexpensive to live, and they're going to want to be close to work because they're not going to have cars. Secondly, there's going to be a group of people who have nice homes somewhere else. They have to come into the office 2 or 3 days a week, and the rest of the time they're going to work from home somewhere else. So they're going to need a place to live when they're in the office 2 or 3 days a week, and this is going to be their pied-à-terre, as they say, part-time house. And for them, they just want a place where they can lay their head and not pay much. So we think that there's going to be demand for this. Also, Century City and Fox is close by. A lot of people work there. Younger people don't have cars as much, so they'd like to be able to walk, take a scooter, take a bike. It's too expensive to have a car. And so we think that there will be demand for this. And the fact is that a lot of people can only afford a smaller apartment and studio. They can afford $2,900, but a 1-bedroom might cost them $3,800, and a 2-bedroom might cost them $4,500 or more. So this price per door is cheaper than they can get elsewhere for something new. So we think there's going to be we think there's going to be demand here. Let me now just show you what the economics of this looks like. Okay. So 1 second. Let me
I
get-
think you have a winner for a location, Steve.
Yep, I think the location, thank you. I think the location is going to work well.
Yeah, yeah.
Location is really everything. It's what it's about here. So here's, is this on the screen? I think this works.
Yeah, yeah.
Over here. Is it still on the screen or did I lose it? I lost it, right?
No, 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 you're good.
You still see the Excel?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So we're looking at the Excel here. So what do we do in this Excel here? Okay. So first, let's look at the underwriting. What's it look like here? So we think that we're building this at a 5.6% return on cost. We think we're going to sell it at a 4.25 return on cost. But that's really not our true return on cost. Our true return on cost, see, we put in here land lift, which says that even though we paid $6 million for the land, we think the land's worth 10 today. If we take out the increased amount of what the land would be worth, we're building this at a 6.5% return on cost.
Well, I just want everybody to notice, Steve, the land lift of 4 million, you're buying it for 4 million under value.
That's, well, we're not buying it, we're calculating it at that. So what we're saying here is that if we look at our cost here, we paid 2.9 for each of the two parcels of land there. Then as you look at this, let me increase the size. Does that help? Does that work? Does it increase the size, Mark?
No, no,
It didn't increase the size for you on the screen?
no.
Oh, okay.
But we can see it.
Okay. So can you still see it? How's
Oh, that's better. Thank you.
okay. So as we look at this, guys, this is the project cost. So we've got the land cost, our acquisition fee, and then land lift. We're going to go down through this whole cost breakdown now. We've got hard cost, 13 million. We put in a cushion here because we bid this thing a while ago and prices might go up. Sponsor contingency, GC fee. I'm going to skip the ORI, furniture, appliances, taxes, insurance, building permits, transit fees, park fees, total development costs. We spent 650 grand on pre-development costs. We're spending about 400 grand on the land loans before we start construction. And then we've got our construction loan here to 7.25 interest rate.
Mhm.
Other fees that are in here. So it's costing us 28 to build. Then we look at our rent roll here. I'm just showing you how we go through this. So our rent roll here, what we did is we took every apartment that we've got here. Okay, so these are the 62 apartments that we're going to have. We started at 2,900 each. And we said that some of them are going to get less rent because they're facing the back, the alley. Some of them are low floors, they're going to get less rent. Some of them are high floors, they're going to get more rent. You see, double height. Some of them are double height apartments because of the way it's designed. They're kind of got this loft space, so we added $100 rent for those. Some of them have large decks, patios, as you can see. We added $400 and $250 for those three because those have decks that are maybe 300-400 square feet that are private decks for them to use. So all in all, our rent here is the rent we came up with. And the rent we came up here is this amount here, as you can see, 2 million one. So then you take that rent here, you put it into your projection here. Okay. So you take it into your projection. This tells you that we trended rents by 3% a year for 2 years. We've got retail rent on the ground floor. We've got other income, flex fees, month-to-month fees, utility reimbursements. I know Mark loves those. Talking, you got your expenses here, and you end up here with your NOI. You take a capital expenditure, which is reserved to fix the roof and repair the floors and fix things. And so you've got a 1.8 million net cash flow. You take that 1.8 million net cash flow. You put it in here and you try to figure out, well, what kind of loan amount can you get? $1.8 million income, 62 apartments. So this is our income. So the first thing is we look and we say, what's our loan to value constraint? This is our income in year 3. Even though the cap rate today would be 3.75 or 4, we're using a 4.25 cap rate. We're saying that the project's going to be worth $42 million in 3 years when it's done. It's going to be appraised, we hope, at that amount. The lender is going to say, we'll give you a maximum 65% loan. So that means the lender on that test, Mark, would give you a $27 million loan.
Mm-hmm.
Second test is loan to cost, $28 million project cost, 70% loan to cost, $19 million loan. Third test is a debt coverage ratio test. We're assuming a 5% interest rate, 30-year amortization gives us a 644 loan constant at a 125 debt coverage ratio gives us a max loan of $22 million. So where are we constrained? We're constrained by 70% cost.
Yeah.
So we're
well, just Steve, just so I can point out, just so everybody knows, scroll up just for me just a little bit. What Steve just did is he took you through a 3-tiered test that a lender will use. The lender is going to loan the lesser of those test amounts.
Yep. I'm going through this really fast, so
Yep.
Mark will be able to unpack the things I'm saying, and I'm going to provide you with these documents for you all to look at.
Thank you.
So we're saying now that 19,700 is like the best loan that we're going to get based on these 3 tests. So that gives us a debt service of $1.2 million. We think it's a 46% loan to value because this number here, 19.7 million, compared to the $42 million value. Loan to value, 70% loan to cost, and a 143 debt coverage ratio, assuming a 5% interest rate and 30-year amortization, telling the lender they've got a 9.27 debt yield. A debt yield is the ratio of the loan amount to the net cash flow, or the net cash flow. That's the yield they've got based on our cash flow. And the project has a 6.5% return on cost this way. Now, the way we underwrote this, we actually underwrote this using a $4 million land lift. I know this gets it confusing, but we convinced the lender that because of the things we did, the land is actually worth $10 million. And if it's appraised for $10 million, that's the value they should give us for the land. It's as if, guys, it's as if we bought the land, we consolidated the 2 parcels, we got it approved, entitled, zoned, very hard to do. And then we sold the land. And our new group bought the land for $10 million. I would buy the land for $10 million because it's still a good deal. Let's see what that deal looks like.
So what Steve just did is he arbitraged the land between an original basis and a net value, and there's some increment in there that he convinced the lender to loan against on that increment. Absolutely brilliant.
So now you look at this and you see the loan to value, the constraint is the same because the value or the cash flow is still the same. The loan to cost has changed. We're now paying $4 million more project cost because we're pretending that we bought the land for $4 million more than our cost. The lender will give us 70% of that, we're hoping. So that's a $22 million loan. And we're still constrained on this debt coverage test of 22. So looky, our loan request that we can support now is 22.6, not 19.7.
Mm-hmm.
That's creative financing that we do. We're at a 53% loan to value, or at a 125 debt coverage ratio.
Brilliant.
We went from 9.5 down to 8. And let's look at what our source and use of funds looks like now. So our loan amount we hope is 22.6. We're getting credit for the land lift that we put in the deal. So that's like equity that we put back in the deal. We're getting credit for our developer fee, and we're getting credit for actually the cash that we put in the deal. So if we can get a lender to buy off on this, they're going to give us a $22 million loan based on their underwriting test. Then we're going to put this equity in, and this equity, 4.7 is real cash, and these are contributions of equity that we've contributed to the deal. It's a complicated way to do the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go and see what happens if the lender gave us no credit at all for the land lift here. Our loan amount is 19.6. If our loan amount is 19.6, see what's happened here. We're only getting a 19.7, 19.6 loan. We've still got the developer fee. We've got no impeded land. And now our equity requirement is 7.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
So a different way to look at this. By the way, here are the rent comps and here are the land comps we used. And by the way, the land comps support our $10 million value. There are two comps that happened. This comp happened just a month or two ago. $12 million for a parcel that is not entitled to build apartments. And that parcel, if you want to talk about that, okay, I'm going to take us back. I know I'm doing this pretty fast. Sorry about that. Here we go. So land, here's that same chart. So let's look at why they should give us more value for the land. We purchased the land for 2.9 each for a total of 5.8. The parcels are the same size. The land in the budget is valued at $9.8, $4 million above sponsor's actual land cost. That's the land lift we talked about, guys, right? Sponsor is using these higher land values for a number of reasons. Sponsor combined the two parcels, we talked about that. The properties were purchased unentitled, now fully entitled. That's the reason why we think it should be done. But if we want to now compare, we can compare it to this property, which was purchased unentitled for $12 million for a parcel that was roughly the same size and can only build a lesser number of parcels on it. So let's look at this paragraph here. The subject property is actually more valuable than the two land comps because the subject allows for additional density. We talked about that. The subject has higher density because it backs on to an alley. Talked about that. It means that you don't have to have as much of a setback. The zoning behind the property is R3 as opposed to R1. R1 is single family residential, which allows the building to be built to the lot line instead of being stepped back. We talked about that. None of these two comps have those advantages, therefore have a lower density. Number of reasons to support why our land is worth.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the roof deck looks like. So I mentioned the private decks. These are the three private decks. Would you pay $450 more to get that deck or $250 a month to get that deck? I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
This deck back here and this deck back here are both shared for everybody. Ocean views or whole works. This talks about the heights, the ceiling heights and everything. So there's my picture, by the way, and the architect here. And by the way, if anybody wants to get hold of me, I'm just going to give a quick ad here.
Sure.
Here's my email address and my phone number right here. And I would love to work with any of you if you need a loan. Number two, if you have a question about a project you're working on, but you don't need my help, I'm happy to help. You can feel free to call or email me. And I also like to remind everybody that you might like to make a referral fee to us. If you know somebody or an uncle or a friend or your father or a brother are in the real estate business, you might say to them, hey, I heard this guy, he sounds like he knows what he's doing. Maybe you want to talk to him about a loan for projects they're working on. Give them my name and phone number and my email address. And if I end up doing a deal with them, I give you 10% of my fee for doing nothing more than a referral to them. So I might suggest you do that. And a lot of Mark's students have made a lot of money off of me by making.
I love it.
Mark, when am I going to be able to pay you?
You know what? You keep coming to my classes, Steve, and I have to still take you to lunch or dinner. What I'd like to do is very much thank you, but I have want to make sure that the students understand one of the most compelling things about this deal that I see is that you bought the land basically for $4 million under market. And what I try and teach, especially my investment analysis and my advanced real estate finance students, is that wealth is created in the buy. It's not created in the sell. Wealth can be realized in the sell, but you've got to snatch up properties at the right location, the right time, the right prices to make the deal work. This is a screamer of a deal. So Steve, congratulations, kudos on you. This is the type of stuff that I expect to see from you all the time.
Thank you. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually working on 7 other development deals right now, and they're all in screamer location. So you're exactly. Was there anything you talked about here that you think we should expand on?
No, I think what I'll do is to just not to take any more of your time. I think what I'll do is I will wrap up this with the students and then just kind of talk to you just for a moment after we conclude this recording. So let me just stop this. Congratulations on this deal. If you have any questions about anything real estate finance related, certainly give Steve a call. He's a mensch, he's a gem, and he's a friend of mine. I call him a friend. So thank you, Steve. Hang on just one second while I click stop.